Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You are listening to Season 5, Episode 13 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. A reminder, listeners, that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, it is a pleasure to be with you here on Full Time, where we get to talk about the beautiful game. G, on this blustery Thursday evening, how are you, my friend?
You know what? I'm a little banged up from our men's league, but outside of that, I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay, man. Just trying to stay nice and warm inside the house because the weather has completely flipped on its head here in northern Ontario, but I'm doing very well. Thank you. In today's show, we will talk Europe's Big Five, the Champions League, the MLS, and the Carabao Cup. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We get today's show started with a look at Europe's Big Five. In the Premier League, Liverpool remain top with a game in hand as the Merseyside derby was postponed this past weekend. It's Chelsea who move into second place and they are just 4 points behind the leaders Liverpool. Arsenal is third and Manchester City is fourth. Gitano, there is a certain school of thought right now that the title is Liverpool's to lose. Do you see it this way?
Not particular. I think Chelsea, specifically Chelsea, but also Arsenal and City are close enough that a couple of bad results here and there could really get the title race a lot closer. It's not like they're 10, 15 points clear where it's kind of like the ball's really in their court. I think it's still pretty tight this early in the season, so I don't think it's particularly theirs to lose yet.
Yeah, and I am with you, and I personally won't be making any judgment calls until after the Christmas period is said and done. And in the relegation zone, it remains the likes of Southampton, Wolves, and Ipswich Town. Gitano, I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were discussing the whole idea of playing philosophy and coaching philosophy and when it needs changing. So for those teams that are at the bottom of the table, do you think it's a good idea for them to keep the playing philosophy that they've had? Or is it time for changing? Because we saw what happened last year with Burnley, with Vincent Company and what have you. Do you think that these teams should stick with it, or is it time maybe for a change?
Um, I think with Ipswich and Wolves, we've kind of seen glimpses here and there of like really fantastic performances where you're like, okay, like they can do this and sustain this in the Premier League. Um, they're just inconsistent with actually getting that kind of high level performance out of their system. So I think for them, it's tough to say you want to stick with it a little longer because it isn't particularly working. Ipswich, particularly, kind of they're expected to go back down even before the season started. So I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world for them to kind of continue to try and play that way, because you presume they're going to try and play that way in the championship next year as well. So it's just that experience playing against better quality opposition. For Wolves, I definitely kind of think they need to change something. We've seen them successful in the Premier League before, finishing in top half of the table. So some things just not right with their system right now. And Southampton just need to do anything differently at this point. Just they need some sort of spark, some sort of kind of hope that they can latch onto here and try and get some results. But yeah, just everything that they've done to this point of the year just has not worked.
Yeah, it's very well said on your part. And the way that I see it right now at the bottom of the table, keep the philosophy, but have a plan B. Have a plan B, because if plan A isn't working, it's time to switch things, because it's not going to be before long that they're in like a proper fight where they might not be able to get out of it. So I think that it's time that they get at least a plan B if they don't want to scrap their philosophy altogether. In Italy, Serie A, it's a change at the top of the table. It's now Atalanta who go top with 34 points. Napoli drops down to second with 32 points. Inter, Fiorentina, and Lazio are all joint third with 31 points. Gee, let's talk about the run of form that Atalanta is in right now, because they are red hot.
I mean, like domestically and in Europe as well, they are just on fire. And we saw this kind of last season, the tail end, for what they did in Europe as well. Just phenomenal, phenomenal team. Um, and just playing probably some of the best, I mean, aesthetically pleasing and also results wise, best football in Europe.
Yeah, and you know what? I know City has gotten a lot of flack down the years for defensive football. I mean, Italian football in general gets flack for being defensive, but Atalanta, they play really aggressive. They play super attacking. They get the fullbacks bombing on, wingers bombing on. They commit numbers forward. It's very entertaining to watch. To your point, so again, a little change at the top there. I don't expect it to stay that way, but Atalanta's in a great run of form across all competitions right now. Out in Spain's La Liga, Barcelona remain top, but they aren't exactly sitting pretty. They have just one win in their last 5 games, which gives them 38 points. Real Madrid is behind them in second, but they have a game in hand. They have 36 points. Third is Atletico Madrid with 35 points. Athletic Club sits comfortable in fourth with 32 points. Gitano, is Barcelona now starting to falter?
Yeah, I think this is kind of what we talked about earlier in the season. The waiting for the Hansi Flick bubble to burst and seeing how they respond. And so far, the response has not been very good. Um, yeah, like I think falter is like a good word because I don't think this is season-ending catastrophic failure. But they definitely need to kind of look themselves in the mirror and get sorted out a little bit. Try and go back to what was working earlier in the season and really just kind of get their season back on track here.
Yep. And for me, I think sometime in January, heck, it could even be the whole month. That is when the sort of tail of the tape will be, run back on, if you will, and will be said either Barcelona took charge of their season then or they lost the handle on it. The Bundesliga in Germany remains as it was and as it has been largely Bayern and everyone else. Gitano, realistically, who can pose the biggest threat to Bayern this season as we see them currently holding a 6-point lead at the top of the table after 13 games played?
So for me, I still think the biggest biggest rival for them is going to be Bayer Leverkusen. Just that squad is almost untouched coming off of an unbeaten season last year. Xabi Alonso is still one of the best coaches in Europe. They just have kind of the most pieces, if that makes sense, to compete with Bayern Munich here. They have the experience, the know-how. They've done it as recently as last season. So I think if any team in the Bundesliga is going to challenge Bayern Munich and maybe try and take them off the top of the table, I think it's going to be Bayer Leverkusen.
I'm largely with you on that. If I had to pick one, it would be them. I don't think that Frankfurt. I mean, they're going to stay in the top four. I think Frankfurt will, but I don't think they'll have enough to push. I do want to say I've been very disappointed with RB Leipzig in terms of how they've dropped off, not just in the Bundesliga but in Europe. Definitely expected a bit more from them, and I was hoping that they'd put up more of a fight, but they're only sitting on 24 points right now. In France's League 1, PSG remains unbeaten, but they have picked up 2 draws in their last 2 games. They have 34 points. Marseille and Monaco are joint second with 29 points. Gitano, is PSG there to be had at this point?
Not quite. We talked about it at length over the course of the season. It's a very young squad, a very kind of fresh squad. So I think this is maybe just a little bit of not quite the bubble bursting, but a bit of a learning curve for them as a really young group, kind of seeing how they kind of cope with this adversity. They've done pretty well so far. They haven't like fully gone off the rails yet. So I don't think they're quite there yet. If they, maybe don't pick up a win in their next, 1 or 2 games, then they might be a little closer. But I think for right now, this is just a little like a stumble for them more than anything.
Yeah, stumble, I think, is a really good word because at the end of the day, they're still unbeaten. They're still top of the table. They still got a decent little gap. So a little stumble along the way, but I anticipate that they will also rebound. We will now jump into the Champions League. Gitano, it's 6 games played and 2 left to go in the competition. Traditionally, after 6 games played, basically forever, we'd be out of the group phase and what have you. But with the new format, obviously we've got 2 games left to play still. So what can you say right now at this point in the competition?
I do kind of like the fact that only, I think you said 3 teams are mathematically eliminated at this point. I feel like
Yeah,
that's
we're definitely going to get that, but only.
yeah, I feel like this is a really kind of fun with 2 games left kind of way to look at it. Again, like you said, typically after 6 games, the group stage is wrapped up. We know who's in, who's out. So it's really cool going into these last 2 match weeks, knowing that like basically like 33 teams are still in this competition. And mathematically, there's so many like again with the amount of teams, there's so many kind of combinations of teams that can go through. So I think that's pretty fun. But it is very weird having played 6 match games and kind of really having no certainty left.
Exactly. Yeah, there's still a lot of question marks in the air, but now we can kind of start to see that light at the end of the tunnel as to, who might get into one of those final spots, if you will. And we're definitely going to talk about that right now in terms of the table. Liverpool, only unbeaten team in the competition and the only unblemished team, by the way. Altogether, they are a perfect 6-0-0. Barcelona is second, so they've been faltering a bit in La Liga, but they're doing quite well in this competition. And then it's Arsenal, Leverkusen, Aston Villa, Inter, Brest, and Lille, who are all joint third. So, Gitano, that's kind of like the top 8 at this moment in time. Again, with one single game, everything could change. Do you think that maybe we could probably anticipate some shakeups in the next game or two?
Yeah, I mean, it's 1 point separating them from Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich in ninth and 10th. So like, yeah, it's close. It's going to be tight. Even a draw, like it's not even a loss could be kind of the difference there. Even like a draw is enough here. So yeah, I think there's going to be still probably other than like Liverpool, there's going to be a lot of changes over these last few match weeks.
I'm with you on that, and expect the next time that we talk about the Champions League in the new year that the table will definitely change. And with just 2 games left to go, it will be essentially everyone else trying to, fight to be a part of the top 24 teams who will qualify for the next round. As we mentioned, there's only 3 teams mathematically who are eliminated in the competition. That's Young Boys, Slovan Bratislava, and RB Leipzig. So, Gitano, who are you looking to make a push in the last 2 games here?
I mean, I'm going to be a little selfish here and say Manchester City. In one of the worst runs of form in the club's history right now, sitting 22nd, only 2 spots out of being eliminated from the competition. Just looking for some sort of spark, just something to get them going. Yeah, I'm self. I want to see City go through.
Can't say I blame you. It wouldn't be right probably if they didn't, but I'm still looking at the likes of Real Madrid, trying to see what PSG might do. These sorts of teams, but there's a lot of big names that haven't been playing great in the competition. But with 2 games left to go, as we say all the time on Full Time, anything is possible, and that is because it is football, of course. And it is the Champions League that will be taking a temporary pause, ultimately resuming in the new year. The next set rather of Champions League games will go on January 21st, 2025. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. It's now time to take a look at the MLS Playoff Final. The match of the season was contested between New York Red Bulls and the LA Galaxy. A match which had all the storylines, statistics, and predictions around it. It was finalized this past Saturday. After 2 early goals from the LA Galaxy, it was the New York Red Bulls who would pull a goal back, but that was as close as they would get. It's the LA Galaxy who are the 2024 MLS Playoff champions by winning a score of 2-1. Gitano, I just want first your thoughts on the game itself.
I thought, and maybe it wasn't the all-timer I was hoping for, but I thought it was a fantastic. It was a fantastic game. I think it was a fantastic kind of representation of MLS for kind of a broader community to watch. I just thought it was really good. It was really 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 good.
Yeah, like you said, it wasn't maybe the all-timer that we had necessarily hoped for, but it was a game that was completely and totally in the balance. It had chances on both ends of the field. There was tactical elements. There was a great display of technical quality on the field. The atmosphere was fantastic. It's almost everything that you would have wanted out of an MLS playoff final. So I certainly was happy to take that in last Saturday at 4 p.m. And taking a look specifically at the New York Red Bulls, Gitano, if you could just speak to their journey this season and the playoff run that they had up to the final, because again, I was one of those people, and I put my hand up. I was one of those people who doubted, but they pushed. They got themselves to a playoff final, and unfortunately just fell a little bit short.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at their kind of path to the MLS Cup Final, playing the Columbus Crew, who have been one of the best teams in MLS the past 4 or 5 years, beating their local rivals, New York City, kind of a huge game for them, not just in terms of the moment, but kind of the emotional weight that comes behind it in a battle in New York like that. A really, really tight battle against Orlando. And then ultimately he's coming up short here in MLS Cup. It almost felt like they were just kind of, there was nothing left in the tank for them. They gave everything they had. I don't want that to be kind of misconstrued. I just don't think there was enough left in the tank when they got to MLS Cup Final, and ultimately it kind of cost them.
That's a great way to put it. They probably did run their race. They had some great battles in the lead up to the final, and the tank probably was just running on E. And for the LA Galaxy, they etched their name in history after what was a compelling season for them. Gitano, please explain just how this LA Galaxy team did what they did, not just in the final, but all season long.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it starts with Greg Vanney. Truthfully, made some big acquisitions in the offseason. He's always been a very attack-minded coach, and we kind of reaped the benefits of that in Toronto for a little while. So they added some major firepower up front, and they just kind of ran with it all year. Just one of the best MLS teams we've ever seen. I would say this 2023 2024 LA Galaxy team. And then it carried on into the playoffs, scoring 18 goals in their 4 games, which is an MLS record. Just it's almost exactly what you'd want like an LA team to be, is just that, that Hollywood offense, the showmanship, the firepower. It was just kind of a match made in heaven. And they just kind of fired their way to an MLS Cup. Their record-setting 6th one. Just an incredible season for them.
Yeah, and the statistics speak for themselves, but so did their quality on the pitch. They were really fun to watch all season, and I anticipate that they're going to have some of that carryover into next season, so expect them to be a threat once again. So that is a wrap on the MLS campaign. What a delight it has been here to cover it all season yet again on full time. And it won't be before long that we will be gearing up for the 2025 season in the MLS. And as always, you can get all of your MLS coverage right here on full time. Gitano, it's been great covering the MLS. Again, it goes so quickly, but gotta love it, and it'll be here before we know it once again.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic to cover it with you, except for Toronto FC because they were awful. But outside of that, it was a fantastic season covering it with you, Scarps.
I'm with you, man. Apart from that pain and misery, hopefully, fingers crossed, there'll be some decent turnaround for TFC next year. But at this moment in time, it's all about the LA Galaxy, the 2024 MLS playoff champions. The Carabao Cup is the competition that a lot of eyes will be shifting towards. After the round of 16 has concluded, there are now 8 teams left in the competition who will be competing in the quarterfinals. Those teams are Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Brentford, Southampton, Liverpool, Tottenham, and Manchester United. Gitano, based on our picks from last round, you went 4 for 8 and I went 6 for 8, so we did quite well. We both got the Leicester game and the Manchester City game incorrect, but other than that, we didn't pick too bad, sir.
City let me down a little bit there, but not my finest work, but you're just fantastic at this. You're really good at it.
Hey, like I say, a blind squirrel could even find an acorn a couple times a day, right? So every once in a while, anyways. But no, we picked pretty good, and we get to pick all over again here and now because we're going to preview these quarterfinals. And first, we're going to start with Arsenal, who play host to Crystal Palace. Gitano, who's going to move on to the semifinal of this competition?
If this game had been at Selhurst Park, I might have been tempted to go with Crystal Palace, but I think at the Emirates, Arsenal's just going to have a little too much for Palace. I think they're going to go through.
Yeah, I have to say just the same. I still think if it was at Selhurst Park, it'd be even more of a challenging game than it's already going to be because I think it's going to be tough. But I'm also going to give the edge to Arsenal. They were in a very good run of form, had a bit of a slip up as of recent against Fulham, but I think that come time for this game, I think that they will be on and up for it. Next is Newcastle, who will welcome Brentford to St. James's Park. G, who do you like here?
I'm very tempted to go with Brentford. Not their best domestic season so far, but just the gut feeling. I think Brentford's got it. I don't think St. James's Park is going to be enough of an advantage for Newcastle in this one.
Yeah, and you know what? It's unfortunate in a certain way that I'm on the same wavelength as you because I'm also taking Brentford. I think that this is going to be one of those games that's going to be won from a dodgy little set piece, and Brentford just kind of sees it through to the end. So I, like you, am also going to take Brentford. Southampton take on Liverpool in the quarterfinal of this competition. Gitano, as it pertains to the Premier League, it's quite literally last place versus first place. But this has nothing to do with the league. This is the Carabao Cup. So league form aside, who's winning this one?
I mean, not league form aside, Liverpool should be winning this game pretty comfortably. Southampton have just not been very good this year at all. And I think even rotating their side, Liverpool should still have more than enough quality to kind of just see Southampton off relatively easily.
Yeah, I think I'd have to be really silly to go against Liverpool at this point because they've just been fantastic all season long. So I'm obviously going to take Liverpool, and we'll see if Southampton can make a game of it and possibly pull off an upset. And it is Tottenham and Manchester United who will lock horns in the last quarterfinal of this competition. Gitano, it's an absolute pity that one of these teams is going to have to go through in this competition. Hate to say it, really, but we do have to pick somebody who's going to win. So who will it be and why?
I've got a funny feeling this is going to be the one that we don't agree on, for the exact reason of it's our rival teams. I think I actually do think Tottenham, rivalries aside, should beat United. United have not looked good since Amram took over. They're just in a lot of turmoil, whereas Tottenham, not that they're fantastic, either. They're just a little more stable right now, and I think that's probably going to be the edge for them. So I'm going to take Tottenham to go through.
There's only one negative on this show, and it's that it's sick how much we agree. I hate Tottenham, but I also have to. I think just Manchester United, they're all over the shop. The Amarim stuff. It's just, and don't get me wrong, Tottenham's in a quite a mess too. Like the fans are really turning on Ange. But
Which I don't understand at all, by the way.
Sorry, say that again.
I don't understand that at all. He's the best thing that's happened to their club in like a decade.
Yeah, neither do I, but it's Tottenham, right? So you're not going to understand it. It's ridiculous. But I don't care if Tottenham do win. I don't care who they play in the next round, even if it's somebody who we haven't picked to win. I think Tottenham will be done come semifinals, regardless of who they play. But I am unfortunately going to have to pick them to go through. Gitano, we got the exact same picks. Obviously, we're both going with Arsenal, Brentford, Liverpool, and Tottenham. We will ultimately see what happens. A reminder to our listeners that these next games will take place on Wednesday and Thursday, December 18th and 19th. And in our next episode of Full Time, we'll be able to discuss the results of these matches for all of you. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we bring today's show to a close, we want to extend our greatest deal of thanks to each of you for tuning in today. Thank you for your continued support. G, it was a really good one tonight. I enjoyed it, and well done to you, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, considering the weather outside, I mean, even regardless of the weather, like there's just very few things I'd rather spend my Thursday night doing than talking the beautiful game with you, Scarps.
I'm with you, man, and I feel the exact same way. We get to do it all again next week, of course. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of December 16th, 2024. This will also be our last show of the calendar year. In that show, we will take a look at Europe's Big Five and the Carabao Cup. As always, we will keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Podbean. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.